So it's 4 and we can start the session. So hi and welcome to all present. And I'm very pleased to welcome you all to the 12th session of the talk series of Phase 4 on modern energy cooking entitled Clean Cooking in India's Energy Transition Pathways to Viksit Bharat and Net Zero. And this session is basically being organized by Finovista and MECS program. And with this, I would like to call upon Dr. Nick Grosso, International Licensing Manager, MECS program. And just giving a brief bio of Dr. Nick. So he has over 20 years of experience of working in UK government, and his final role was Head of International Innovation Strategy at the Department of Business Innovation and Skills. Nick led the innovation strand of Newton program and government to government policy dialogues. Nick holds a BA, MSc, and PhD degree in psychology from the universities of Cambridge, Loughborough, and Sheffield, with a focus on psychology and user-centric system design. With MECS program, Nick is one of the international licensing managers for India. Nick, over to you, please.
Thank you, Nay. Thank you for that kind introduction. Very excited to have this session with you all. I hope that it will go well as we're covering a really critical and important topic today. As Nay says, we're going to be discussing the role of cooking in a report that recently came out from NITI Aayog, looking at India's progress as a nation and its ambitions for Viksit Bharat and Net Zero. Just before we launch into it, I wanted to set the scene by commenting on a report that we have also published that I think is actually proving very timely. This report was entitled A Wide-Ranging Review of India's Journey Towards Electric Cooking. And as it happened, we released this beginning of this year, and it happened at the time when, as you'll be aware, there's an evolving global energy landscape, to say the least. And India has very much been affected, as have many other countries, by recent disruptions that have influenced the availability and cost of LPG. So I think it's an opportunity to look at our options and to consider those carefully. And the report that we developed with our partner Finovista presents a comprehensive overview of the evidence revising that evolving landscape about electric cooking. It covers things like the supply chain, the impact of the grid of increased heat cooking, how to manage peak load risks as practical advice on how to encourage adoption. But I was personally very excited to read the report that NITI Aayog have published on India's journey to Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, given that cooking played quite a significant and prominent role in that narrative. We were very impressed by the analysis and the ambition that the report demonstrates. We really agree with the potential for India to make key investment decisions now that could accelerate both of these agendas, the modernisation and the net zero, while at the same time improving the health of millions of citizens, improving wealth also, and gender balance across the country. So we want this webinar today to contribute to the debate that must be going on now following the publication of that report. And we've got some very distinguished and knowledgeable speakers who can share their views on different aspects of this transition. I should say that we have a chat facility, as I'm sure you're aware if you've used this kind of thing before. And so we'd encourage everyone to introduce themselves on the chat, to give your contact details if you'd like to be contacted, and to offer any comments and questions that occur to you as you hear the speakers today. And I'll endeavour to respond to those and pick up on those towards the end of the session if there's time. So it's a good opportunity to kind of continue to build that community of people all around the world who are looking to see a transition towards cleaner cooking for the billions of people that still cook with polluting fuels. Okay, let's move into the session then. I will start by introducing Dr. Abhishek Sharma, who is the Director at the Bureau of Energy Efficiency under the Ministry of Power, and who has over 14 years of professional experience in energy efficiency and renewable energy. And he previously served at the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Management Centre. Dr. Sharma. I'm just
Yeah,
looking
good
for.
evening. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for joining. So two topics I'd be interested in your comments on. So India has national appliance efficiency standards for electric cooking. How can these standards be strengthened and harmonized across states? And also, do you have a view on what role distributed renewable energy could play in mitigating grid stress arising from electrified cooking demand? So over
Okay.
to you, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you. So first come, first serve. This standard and labeling program. The BE is operating this standard and labeling program under the guidance of the Ministry of Power. At present, we have 40 appliances under this program, in which 15 are in the mandatory stage and rest of them are in voluntary stage. So we have developed the standards for this induction cooktops for the domestic sector. And earlier it was supposed to launch from the 1st July, came into application from 1st July 2026. But since there were some supply challenges and disruption in the market due to this West Asia crisis, this has been, the deadline has been extended till 1st January 2027. So this program will become mandatory from 1st January 2027. And we, as per the direction of the Ministry of Power, is also developing the standards for the commercial induction. And for this, we are in touch with Bureau of Indian Standards. We will have our first meeting tomorrow at Bureau of Indian Standards. So we will be developing the standards in collaboration with Bureau of Indian Standards for this commercial induction cooktop part. Further, BE has done its bit. We are in touch with the various commercial induction appliance manufacturers, the OEMs. We are in touch with various glass manufacturers and also in touch with the various induction hob manufacturers to ease their supply demand challenges. And we are also promoting these induction cooktops from our state partners. We, through the funds from the Ministry of Power, has supported various states. We have supported Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Ladakh, and Puducherry in their pursuit for clean energy. And we have also supporting various states in terms of the Surya Nutan from Indian Oil Corporation. So we have got good results in this regard, and hopefully this program will take off and will provide substantial saving to the country and will help in achieving the clean cooking mission in the country and towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And good to hear that you're been supporting the Surya Newton. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the role of more localized energy generation in the context of a grid which is... Yeah.
Okay. We recently had a visit to some of the manufacturers and some of the users in the southern part of the country where we realized there are supply challenges issues. So one of the best possible solution right now is to utilize the distributed energy sources. We can utilize the solar energy, the wind energy, any form of renewable energy can be integrated. In this pursuit, we has already supported the IOCL Surya Nutan cook stove. And I think till the time the market develops and we have a robust supply available in the country in terms of the voltage fluctuation and in terms of the availability of supply, we can look for a solution from the renewable energy side. It's definitely a good step to integrate renewable energy with the induction cooktops. It can serve then the far-flung areas of the country and can really help the needy people. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So let's move on to Sri Ravi Kumar, who is an energy and climate policy professional in NITI Aayog's Green Transition, Energy and Climate Change Division, who specializes in strategies to advance India's green transition and achieve long-term net zero goals. Sri Kumar is currently pursuing a PhD at IIT Delhi. His research focuses on decarbonising community-level greenhouse gas emissions through innovative clean technologies and adaptation measures. So, Sri Kumar, you are, I'm sure, heavily involved in the publication of this latest report and the analysis. And so, what can you tell us about the kind of policy interventions which you feel going forward could align clean cooking programs with India's ambitions towards 2047 and 2070? And how do you feel that large-scale cooking electrification would influence the load curves, peak demand challenges, and the requirements to strengthen the distribution infrastructure? Over to you. Oh, you're not audible, you're muted.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick, and good afternoon, all the distinguished panelists and participants. So I am pleased to join the session on this talk series organized by Finovista along with this Modern Energy Cooking Services program. So now coming to this modeling part, our modeling part and modeling team has envisaged, they have considered all the sectors, not only cooking, rather the social impacts, the transportation and every sector, because India has pledged to be net zero by 2070. So given the current scenario, India today stands at a unique point in its development journey. Unlike many advanced economies, we are in the process of building our civil infrastructure, power infrastructure, manufacturing capability, urban development, and a lot's going on. Because our energy demand is going to be increased, and we have a vision, our PM has a vision to be Viksit Bharat by 2047. So economic development measures higher industrial output, expanded infrastructure, and greater mobility is the need of the nation. However, in the present era, the challenge for India is decoupling economic growth from GHG emission. You know, India is still vastly dependent on for their actual power need on the coal sector and the fossil based. Although we have a huge renewable energy installed capacity, but the major of the demand meets through the fossil sector. So for that, government is doing a lot of push on the renewable sector through PM Saurya Ghar Yojana for the decentralized energy and the other winds and solar energy that all are provided. So the recent released NITI Aayog study that of it was a very huge volume. Actually, there were 11 volumes on different sectors, industry, transport, then energy efficiency, social aspects. So particularly to that, it was developed on how India can simultaneously achieve high economic growth, energy security, and deep decarbonization over the coming decades. The study explores how India can simultaneously achieve its goals becoming of Viksit Bharat by 2047 and net zero target by 2070. So one of the key findings of the study is that electricity will play a critical role in across all the economy and across all the sector to decarbonize our economy. It recommends a wider adoption of electric mobility, electric cooking, electrified industrial processes to reduce fossil fuel dependence significantly. Within this broader transformation to cleaner fuel, cooking deserves greater attention that has been taken up in the report. So we know that historically cooking has often been viewed as the primarily through the lenses of energy access, public health, and social welfare. While these dimensions remain critically important, cooking must now also be understood as an important component of India's evolving energy scenario. The choice households and institutions make regarding cooking fuel influence electricity demand, LPG consumption, import dependence, and the infrastructure investment required. So from the energy planning perspective, what we did on the report, first, uh, if we come to specifically to the clean cooking, it sits on the intersection of several national priorities. First is the energy security. Well, India has made a remarkable progress in expanding access to LPG and modern cooking solutions, at the same time reducing vulnerability to the international fuel crisis that we have seen in the past 4 5 months. The price volatility and import dependence remains an important strategic objective. We have seen how the commercial LPG cylinders and all jumped threefold. Diversification of clean cooking options include efficient electric cooking technologies can contribute the positive towards strengthening India's long-term energy security. The second one is electrification. So net zero indicates a gradual but significant expansion of electricity use and end use sector. But with the same time, if we electrify everything, the load demand at the household level is also going to increase. And the infra we have existing needs to be revamped. So Ministry of Power is also doing RDSS scheme and all are there. They are revamping the distribution sector scheme so that the load or the demand that each house, as of now, the India's per capita energy demand is approximately around 1200 to 1300 kilowatt hour, which is way below than the global energy demand, global per capita demand. So revamping of this, our electric infrastructure is going to be a critical role. Third is your infrastructure planning. Large scale adoption of electric cooking has implications for distribution networks and all. So we have to consider those things. I will just give you some numbers. Like if you look the current scenario in cooking, we are approximately using a 94 MTOE million ton of oil equivalent in cooking only. And the major significant, approximately 65% is contributed through biomass and only 32% through LPG and only 1% is through electricity. So going way beyond, if we go, so now we have divided our model into shorter time period also. So if we go till 2035, so there the electrification is jumped from 1% to 24%, and the LPG share is also increased to 45%, whereas the biomass has reduced to 20%. And the overall energy consumption reduces from 94 million MTOE to 56 MTOE. So there is a government push, and that is evident. And in fact, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, or there are other electrification schemes. In fact, Abhishek Sharma sir just rightly said the standard labeling and the has promoted the electric cooking, and government is doing taking all the necessary steps to promote the efficient cooking, clean cooking, whether it is through solar routes, electric routes, or the LPG or PNG connections. So we are working on that. That's
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a very impressive and very broad agenda, as you say. NITI Aayog obviously are key as a central body within the government ministries to try to coordinate and to help align these different policy shifts. I think what we're keen to see is that kind of modelling enabling the government to identify where it can create savings in one side that could then be used to support investment in others. And that I think is where there's the real potential to leapfrog and to take advantage of some of these opportunities.
right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, we're making really good time, so thank you very much. But what I'd like to do is to get all the speakers to have their opening comments, because we're getting a few questions coming, and then we can come back to you all and give you a chance to respond to some of those questions and maybe make some wider comments. So our next speaker is Professor Matthew Leach, who is Professor of Energy and Environmental Systems and leads data analysis and modelling within the MECS programme. He is a chartered engineer with over 30 years' experience in energy policy, low carbon technologies and decentralized energy systems and energy modelling. So, Professor Leach, Matt, can you share some of the insights into the global moves on electrification and clean cooking transitions and MECS's experience in other regions outside of India as they move towards scaling up e-cooking? Just useful for India to understand what we're seeing elsewhere.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks very much to Finovista for the invitation to join. So MECS began working with India soon after our program started some 8 years ago, and India's clean cooking transition is, rightly admired around the world, and we've heard a few hints towards that already. And so we have learned a huge amount, of course, from your experience. But other countries in the world are in different, often less advanced positions, both in terms of their development, but also in terms of their transition to clean cooking. Often starting in a sense later than India did, but in some cases with higher shares of renewables already on their grids, just because of their demographics and their natural resources. Many have started pursuing the electric cooking option, maybe a little more aggressively, a little earlier. Globally, we note, of course, the increasing focus on transitions to highly electric economies, as we've just heard mention of, and India is in a leading position on this, and clearly is moving strongly. And the NITI Aayog report and other analysis shows that clean cooking is a key part of that transition. So let me share a few of the insights we've gathered in our work in other countries and internationally. A key lesson, I think, from MECS evidence across multiple countries is that clean cooking mustn't be treated as just a household fuel substitution issue. It's also an electricity demand, utility revenue, energy security, infrastructure planning opportunity across all user types, households and businesses. So I very much echo what we've just heard from Sri Ravi Kumar. I think we're well in tune on this. I'll just focus briefly on two key issues around electric cooking: impacts on peak loads and affordability. Just a few thoughts on each of those, if I may. So MEC's experience in Africa suggests that one of the most overlooked benefits of e-cooking is demand enhancement for electric utilities. In many contexts, especially among lower income users, electrification, of course, has delivered connections, but relatively low consumption, often limited just to lighting and low power uses. That creates a utility problem. Fixed network costs are high, but revenue per customer remains very low. E-cooking and other higher energy uses can change the economics because e-cooking is a regular high value everyday energy service. So we frame it as part of electricity access, reliability, quality and sustainability planning, so that grid and renewable investments serve a larger, more welfare enhancing set of loads, being cooking. For India, I think that also speaks directly to the ambitions of Viksit Bharat. Distribution companies, of course, need financially useful demand growth, but unmanaged demand growth can worsen peaks and losses. E-cooking therefore does present an opportunity, but also a risk. Now, the experience I think we can share more of this later with anybody who's interested, is that thanks to IoT-enabled appliances in particular, we now have increasingly good data from induction and other kinds of electric cooking rollouts in Africa and other parts of South Asia, showing the real e-cooking load profiles and what happens when thousands of users are aggregated on a network. And I mean, very broadly, that evidence is showing that high appliance efficiency reduces the individual appliance loads, of course, but automatic controls on modern stoves mean that devices switch on and off to maintain the desired cooking rate. As a result, the aggregate network peak is highly diversified. In some cases, perhaps only 15% of what would be expected if you simply added up the rated appliance capacities. And countries are also beginning to experiment with time of day pricing and other flexibility tools to shape cooking loads. So I think there's quite a lot that could further be done here, and maybe some experience to share with Discoms and others. Just briefly turning to affordability, study after study, including in India, and I think this is part of the study that we just heard about, shows that e-cooking can be cheaper to operate than purchasing traditional fuels or unsubsidized LPG. But the upfront costs of appliances and sometimes of new cookware to go with induction, for example, can be a big barrier, particularly, again, for lower income households. So we've worked on those issues in a number of countries, and solutions include all the obvious things about strengthening supply chains, supporting local manufacture, procurement initiatives to bring economies of scale and so on. And India is already leading in many of those areas for your own markets. And increasingly, you have got and are sharing that experience internationally. But one area where, again, there may be some valuable experience to share with India is on appliance purchase mechanisms. Now, you again are world leading in microfinance, but other models of achieving that upfront cost kind of handling may also be useful. For example, MECS supported a pilot in Tanzania in which the utility TANESCO helped customers to buy electric cooking appliances, then recovering the costs through small additions to their regular electricity bills. And that's an example of the first that we're aware of on-bill financing mechanism for cooking. That helps address some of the risks of traditional microfinance, particularly where customers lack collateral. Now, that pilot was very successful, and TANESCO has since moved, without any prompting from us, to open that scheme to customers on a purely commercial basis. And that's because the utility benefits from the additional load, and the model has moved from pilot into a core business strategy for the utility. And that experience, I think, alongside others, underlines the central role that utilities have to play in scaling e-cooking and the moving towards highly electric economies. I think that's enough from me now, Nick. So back over to you.
Thank you. And obviously, like I said at the start, this is just the start of, well, not the start. This is just part of a conversation that we hope will continue. And I think there's great value for everyone in sharing learning like this. Okay, thank you, Professor Matt. Our next speaker is Ms. Neha Dhingra, who serves as the director of the India program at CLASP, which is an international non-profit organization focused on improving energy efficiency to mitigate climate change and expand access to clean energy. With over 14 years' experience in policy and regulatory analysis, compliance, policy design, and institutional capacity building across India, Southeast Asia, and West Africa, Neha leads strategic partnerships with the government and others to advance appliance energy efficiency policies. So, from the perspective of your work at CLASP, Ms. Dhingra, most discussions focus on households, but what is the role of non-residential cooking demand from hotels, restaurants, hospitals, schools, etc.? And what standards and performance benchmarks and policies could accelerate electrification of cooking in these segments? And then, coming to your absolute core area of expertise, can you comment on the role of appliance efficiency standards and demand-side management and time of day tariffs in managing these peak electricity demand challenges? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you, Finovista team, for organizing this discussion and inviting me. I think one area that is, I wouldn't say overlooked, but little bit understated is the role of institutional and commercial consumers when it comes to transition towards e-cooking. There has been significant focus on the residential consumers in terms of awareness and outreach, but I feel like with fewer decision makers, there is larger potential towards enabling this transition if we kind of focus on institutional and commercial consumers. There are large kitchens in canteens, hospitals, in railways, educational institutes, hostels, restaurants, which consume significant amount of LPG every day. They can become early adopters. And in some of the restaurant chains, we are already seeing that transformation happening, and they can help scale the market much faster than relying solely on individual households. Because in individual households, there are, as we all know, there are different considerations. One is cooking behavior, cooking habits. Another is kitchen adaptability, the kitchen infrastructure, and there are a lot of changes that need to happen, to enable a significant transformation and transition towards e-cooking in the residential space. So from a market transformation point of view, institutional demand, I feel, can create a very predictable demand for manufacturers. It can support development of service network and demonstrate and operate and basically demonstrate an operational and economic viability at scale. And both BEE and we have Mr. Abhishek Sharma here, both Bureau of Energy Efficiency and Ministry of Power are kind of, working towards it. They have identified this as one of the key areas and are kind of, trying to enable and demonstrate as well as accelerate adoption of e-cooking in the institutional as well as commercial kitchens. Now coming to the standards, I think a key enabler of this transition is standards and quality assurance, because it is a big transition. It comes at a cost. There is behavior involved. So you know, long-term adoption depends on user experience and how credible and quality assured these products are. Um, so one of the based on our experience of working with India's standards and labeling program, that one of the reasons it has been successful is that because consumers have confidence in the product quality and performance. So as Abhishek sir said, that BE has already started the process of developing standard for commercial induction cook stoves, and which is very timely. BE already has standards for residential induction cooktops, which is going to transition to mandatory. And these are important milestones because it provides assurance that the product that are entering market, they are safe, they are meeting minimum quality and efficiency requirements. And then the government seal basically gives that confidence to the consumers, and it helps increase adoption. Commercial and institutional cooking, BE is already taking that approach. We need to kind of accelerate that. We need to kind of further keep building on it. All of us need to contribute towards it, because large buyers would need confidence in performance, durability, safety, energy consumption, operating costs. So having some of these standards, specifications, quality assurance can kind of build consumer confidence. So there is and these can also serve as demonstration projects, while at the same time generating energy savings and reducing energy consumption. Also, I'll just add one more point, that from a grid planning perspective, also they are much easier to kind of work with than million of dispersed household. Uh, it's just easier to predict demand. Usage patterns are much more predictable. And also from demand aggregation point of view, it's slightly more easier, and a larger scale basically can be achieved through, I guess, a bit of a smaller effort as it would require in the case of residential uh, transition, because that one cannot happen overnight. It is much more strategic. For a long time, I anticipate that LPG or biomass will continue, at least LPG will continue to work alongside induction cook stove, even if that transition is taking place. So I feel like institutional has a very, very huge potential, and we are on the right track to kind of, enable that integration. So I'll stop there. And if there are any further questions, or follow-up comments, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you.
Thanks, Neha. That's great. And I think Finovista is actively working with a number of states on that institutional cooking scenario, and indeed on the small-scale eateries, the street food vendors. One thing that came out as we were writing our stock take report was that the residential, commercial, and institutional segments have very different drivers, and the challenges and the kind of ways you can create incentives and support for them are very different. But as you say, there's definitely some sort of early wins that can be gained from looking at institutional cooking. Okay, our last speaker, and by the way, I'm really encouraged to see we're getting some good questions coming in through the chat, which I'm carefully noting. I give you a thumbs up if I've spotted it, and then we will certainly have time to come back to this now. We've got we're making good progress through this. So our final speaker for today is Ms. Sheetal Rastogi, a good friend of mine now, who is the director and co-founder of Finovista, with over 16 years experience in supporting business across many different areas. At Finovista, she leads the research, including studies into Indian cooking culture and practice and cooking with electricity, and the talk series of Modern Energy Cook Forum, and also grassroots training initiatives for livelihood creation. She is a mentor on the Women in Clean Cooking mentoring program, and is one of the Energy Dozen 2024 that spotlight 12 leading women in India's energy sector. So, Ms. Rastogi, you've seen firsthand how behavioral patterns influence technology adoption. So what user-related factors should be incorporated into energy transition models? And also, what supply chain considerations should be taken into account when scaling electric cooking? And do you feel the sector is ready to support a large-scale transition to electric cooking? Two quite different topics.
Thank you, Dr. Nick, for the discussion in today's session. It's very special because we're coming to a wrap of this phase of talk series. Uh, yeah, so I think I'll start by saying that cooking is fundamentally very different from other energy end uses. And while my fellow speakers talked about the aspect of policy, grid readiness, standards, I would like to focus on the consumers and the end users. And when we are talking about the end users, cooking is linked to multiple factors, different cultures, taste, the convenience it provides to the consumers, the routines, the gender roles, livelihoods, and of course, the aspirations that the households have. And we have to be really realistic in understanding how people cook rather than assuming how do they do. And since we've worked on multiple customer segments in India, I think I would like to highlight six important factors which deserve greater attention when we are looking at a scale up of electric cooking. First important aspect is what NITI Aayog has also mentioned in its report, and it talks about the aspect of fuel stacking. We've seen while working with different customer segments that none of the people really switch to electric cooking 100%. It's a phased adoption which happens, and they start by doing little experiments where they are doing simple processes, or they are just experimenting with certain recipes. And as they create, develop that kind of confidence within themselves, they start to adopt it in the mainstream, and in terms of making it like the primary cooking fuel choice on electric cooking. The second important aspect to it is that we need factor in the diversity that we are talking about, and therefore many a times when we are discussing in India, we generally equate electric cooking transition to a simple induction cooking transition. And I think there is where we just leave the whole aspect of diversity and the requirements people have, whether they are deep frying, pressure cooking, or cooking different cuisines, and the different utensils which are very close to the user. And it's very difficult to, or creates a very big adoption barrier when you have to, completely switch to a new way of cooking. And therefore, there needs to be a parallel work in terms of working on different technologies which supports this kind of a diversity. I think I would say that manufacturers in India have been doing incredible work in creating that kind of an ecosystem. And while we talk, there are already technologies like infrared cooktops, hybrid cooktops, dual zone induction cooktops, cooktops which have infrared and induction simultaneously. And therefore, it's very important to acknowledge this kind of diversity. I think third important factor, which some of the speakers have already touched also, is the aspect that when we are moving to electric cooking, we cannot discard the aspect of the readiness of the cookware ecosystem that we have, and it needs to be built along. It cannot be, when we are planning programs, it cannot be just a cooktop focused program. It needs to incorporate, the different cookware that needs to go along with it, and also needs to cater to the readiness which is required in the Indian kitchens. Indian kitchens have not been planned or have not been imagined for the use of electric cooking. And even when we look at cities in, like, tier one cities of Delhi and Mumbai, etc., we have flats which have very limited plug points which are there in the kitchen area, maybe just for mixer grinders or one or two appliances. And therefore, that kind of kitchen readiness needs to be there if you're looking at a scale up of electric cooking for the users. This brings me to the fourth aspect of it, which is to say that the learning curve and the confidence of the users. Many times people say that electric cooking is very complicated because it's got like those buttons with controls, etc. It's a barrier for people who are not very well educated. And and every time when we work with the users, the experience is very different. We need to understand that we are operating in a time where in India the smartphone penetration is like close to 86%. So people know how to operate devices, they are owning the devices, and they're actually integrating it into their daily routines. And therefore it's about more closely making people aware about the benefits of these devices and giving them a chance to experience that this kind of barrier and confidence can be strengthened with the consumer. um, Another point which is very much important is that the factor of comfort with the factor of safety, and specifically when we are talking about that in residential area, the most important user is the female of the house, and therefore we need to articulate these associated benefits very strongly. So many a times these benefits of additional thermal comfort, convenience, the safety the electric cooking provides becomes very important, not only at the point of sales, but also with respect to sustaining the operations of these devices continuously. Because many cases we see that there is a purchase, but is the user really using the device becomes a very big question, and therefore awareness around these aspects becomes very critical. Lastly, the point is with respect to the affordability, like the other panelists highlighted, that there's, of course, a capex and an opex cost when we are looking at the technology. Of course, the upfront cost has to be the upfront cost of the device and also the cookware combined. And we've seen that in the case of switching to electric cooking, users can save as much up to 50% of their cost as compared to LPG. So therefore, the economics kick in when the user starts using the device, and it becomes very affordable when we put together the capex and the opex of the device. And we need to understand the high upfront cost of these devices or induction cooktops. As we are going to be achieving the scale that we are gunning for, the devices of the prices of these devices are going to definitely come down as the economics kick in. So I think I'll stop at this, Nick, and we can we can come back on this aspect.
Thanks, Chital. Yes, there's a lot there, isn't there? Okay, brilliant. So we now have time for some Q&A. And I'm pleased to see that we've got quite a number of really interesting questions that have come through in the chat, and I hope I've captured them all. I'm going to invite anyone who wants to, from the speakers, to respond to the questions, and I'm just going to go through them in order in which they appeared, so there's no prioritization. And like I say, I'm trying to keep a track. There's another question coming in there. Okay, so the first question comes from Rahul in CEW. He wanted to know if there are any plans to integrate e-cooking within the PM Surya Nodjan program. I think this is this rooftop solar, maybe from IEC/BCC and awareness generation perspective. So this is about policy intentions and potential to integrate e-cooking into wider programs that are already going well in India. Would anyone like to comment on that?
Yeah, so let me come in.
Thank you.
So exactly, maybe that may be happen. The thing is, the PM Surya Ghar Yojana is still on the nascent stage, and the government and ministry, in fact, NITI is pushing to get it to the ground level. And the ground level results are coming very good, but the scheme is only catering right now for the 2 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt. And so that may be idea, and that's good suggestion also we may consider, because coming to the decentralized cooking and to promote this electric clean cooking, that can be integrated. But for sure, this type of scheme is going to come to the MSME sector as of now, similar to PM Surya. Right.
Great,
So it may be integrated in time, but as of now in the model, this is not integrated.
Well, okay, thank you. And I'm aware that there is quite a lot of alignment between the institutions where solar rooftop programs are being put in place and the potential to electrify canteens. I think there's, again, the kind of remembering not to just focus on domestic residential segments is important. Would anyone else like to comment on the question? No? Okay. So the next question is from Laura Aylett at the British High Commission. She's asking specifically for Sri Kumar, but others could answer again. Does the net zero scenario in your modelling include significantly more electrification of cooking than the business as usual scenario? So is it about kind of a more aggressive approach, and what are the policies or technology developments that could help a more ambitious scenario be realised?
Okay, fine. So it's interesting one. So we know the cooking sector is like in India, the cooking is very personal to everyone and every household. So like I'm from a village side of this, and I have worked in Coal India, and I have seen the Jharkhand area or to the remotest place, and I have been to the northeast. So in India, the cooking is very personal to their own thinking. Now, coming to your question, was the net zero in your modeling include significantly more electrification? Okay, yes, in our net zero, we have assumed the higher degree of electric cooking because this thing we witnessed. In fact, our vision is to anyhow decentralize this cooking, and the biomass that is contributing to the higher GHG emissions shall be reduced. Okay. So with the faster shift from the traditional biomass, and it's not only electricity, the LPG and the PNG is also playing a greater part on that, and the solar cooker and ethanol, maybe ethanol stove is also under consideration, and hydrogen. So there are other options are that we are until unless it becomes the commercially viable, the technology is tested at the pilot level, like Finovista is doing a very good job in that thing. They are doing many study at the ground level. So once we get some results from inputs, then the government may think to implement at the ground level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the next question kind of builds on that, and I know it's something that Sheetal could potentially respond to this time. So this is from Shama Shivali. Which parts of the clean cooking value chain are which parts of the clean cooking value chain are still heavily import dependent? And where does India need stronger domestic capability to achieve energy security? So what kind of manufacturing or supply components could be more embedded within India itself? Sheetal and others may wish to respond to that as well.
Yeah. So, Nick, I'll just explain a little bit before answering this question, just for the larger audience as well. So currently, the induction market in India estimates at around 10 billion units roughly annually. Okay. And this, when I say induction market, it also includes the demand for the induction and the infrared cooktop. So broadly that. Now, when we are talking about the import dependence, there are, while the assembly in India is, domestically sorted, but there are several components, including PCBs, integrated circuits, glass tops, and cooling systems on which India is still heavily relying on terms of imports. But I think the good news is that even Abhishek ji is there from B in the conversation. There has been a significant effort from the policy to support domestic glass manufacturing from India. And I think very soon, certain clusters approach is coming up in terms of supporting the domestic glass manufacturing. And definitely, when we are looking at a scale up, we need to understand that these critical components, the supply of this needs to be indigenized so that less vulnerability is there in the supply chain aspect of it. But having said that, when we are talking about in terms of demand versus supply, the Indian manufacturers at this point of time have a considerable, capacity which can support the increased demand. And in fact, multiple manufacturers in the recent past have articulated that they have very significant plans of doubling their capacities to cater to the increase in demand that they have seen in the recent spike, because they have also articulated that there is increase in demand from multiple states, and it's not just because of the recent issue in the supply chain that has happened for LPG, but because of the increased awareness about electric cooking devices, the diversity that these devices bring in now with like infrared cooktops, etc. Regions like Bihar, Jharkhand are also seeing an increased penetration in the electric cooking demand from the consumers over there. So yeah.
Thank you. Great. Yes. No, I think there's a lot happening, and I think from what I hear anyway, the government is really stepping forward to see what it can do and working well with manufacturers on that.
I want to add
you want
something.
to add? Yes. Sorry, do.
We had several rounds of discussion in the ministry also, Ministry of Power, DPIT, and some other ministries, even MNRE, are in touch with each other, and they are supporting this manufacturing localization ecosystem in the country. In terms of glass manufacturing, we have supported some manufacturers to roll out their products as quickly as they can in India, so that we become less import dependent on these products. Similarly, DPIT is again helping the manufacturers to import the products. And in terms of easing out the ease of doing business in terms, we have supported from the ministry side various manufacturer in terms of custom clearance and all those things. So in all, the overall, the government machinery is working in tandem to support the localization of products and to have a good ecosystem of manufacturing in the country, so that not only we are reliable in terms of the energy security, but a system can be created in the country where we can support the local manufacturing, and it creates job opportunities in the country and create market for exports in the time to come. Thank you.
Excellent. So more people have turned their cameras on, so I'm guessing they'd like to contribute. So Matt and Naya.
Thank you. I was going to make a comment about the potential for export, but Dr. Sharma mentioned it in his last few breaths of that contribution. I mean, yeah, the point I wanted to make is that while many other countries, as I was saying earlier, are exploring and moving rapidly on scale up of electric cooking, most other countries are far, far behind India in terms of their domestic production capacity. And so all the countries we work in in Africa, almost exclusively import their devices from China at the moment, and maybe import some components and do some local assembly. But local manufacture is a long way behind, and so that does bring a big opportunity for India, I think, potentially to expand its manufacturing capacity and export market. I know you've got a big challenge domestically, but some export market is never a bad thing for a country, I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah, did you want to contribute further?
No, I primarily just wanted to concur with all the thoughts that have been shared in terms of the overall market opportunity that there is, the production capacity, not just the production capacity that there is at the moment, but also the way industry is planning to scale it up and the scale that we will have. So it's not just to kind of, contribute to the surge, but they are seeing this demand sustain in the long run. And that's why, there is a huge investment in the local production capacity, right? And as part of the MECS, we are also kind of supporting this joint venture building, and one of the effort is to help Indian manufacturers, to think about how to export and how to create an export market opportunity for them. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Nick, I'll also just add one small point, which is like a market indicator. So around 3-4 years back, when we were speaking to manufacturers, and especially the Indian appliance manufacturers, for them, the electric cooking portfolio was significantly small. But right now, when we speak to manufacturers, the electric cooking portfolio amongst all the appliances, household appliances and kitchen appliances that they are producing contributes to around 30 to 50%. So that actually is a very big market indicator. Second important point is that I've been telling that many times, that when your large market retailers like Chroma, Reliance, etc., start making their private labels for any product category, that's a very big indicator to say that this category now has the consumer demand, and it is very profitable for them to launch their own brands because there's enough demand that they are creating. So yeah, I'll just add that.
Okay, thank you. Great. Yeah, there's plenty more we can say on this as well, but I want to bring us to some further topics that have come up. So there's two relating to carbon finance as a potential enabler. Just reading out one question from Idrapal Palmer. The modelling shows electric cooking increasing from roughly 1% today to 24% by 2035, while reducing overall cooking energy demand from 94 mtoe to 56 mtoe. How does the modelling account for the resulting greenhouse gas reductions, particularly considering India's evolving grid emissions factor? And do you foresee electric cooking being recognised as a major mitigation pathway under India's future carbon market mechanisms, including the CCTS and potential Article 6 activities? And there's another question which is very similar. As electric cooking becomes increasingly aligned with national decarbonisation strategies, how do you see the future carbon credit programme addressing NDC accounting, Article 6 requirements, and potential interactions with the CCTS? So these are quite technical questions. I know B is heavily involved in the carbon credit and these arrangements. So maybe something for Dr. Sharma to respond to, but also Ravi Kumar, maybe from the modelling point of view, and Matthew from our international perspective. Who would like to kick off?
Okay, so I will start first. So yeah, in the net zero pathways, the emission reduction from cooking comes from the three linked levers. That is reduced final energy cooking demand. Second one is fuel switching from traditional biomass and LPG to electricity. And the third one is higher end use efficiency of the electrical appliances. The efficiency of the appliances are increasing relative to the baseline stove. So these are the three levers mostly. Other factors are also there, but these three accounted to shift in the change in the energy demand. Like, so now what he wants clarity on this 94 million ton of oil equivalent is the total energy demand for the cooking sector as of now. And we are predicting that that will reduce to 56 mtoe, million ton of oil. So that is the total energy demand. In this, the biggest role is the efficiency. For example, I will give you in the net zero case what happened. The total cooking energy consumption is expected to decline from 97 today to 41 mtoe by 2070. So this reduction is driven by the efficiency gains from the shifting LPG, PNG and to the electric options. Or simply understand like that, biomass supplied over 75% of India's energy cooking demand in 2020. But only 40% of that total energy content was into the service. However, in contrast, LPG accounted only for the 22% of the energy input, but it met approximately 50%, 57% of the cooking demands, and remaining were PNG and electricity. So this shift you are seeing is not only because of electricity, although the efficiency increased, and plus the other addition of other diversified fuel usage, suppose LPG, PNG, and etc. That's the submission for it.
Okay, that's really helpful clarification of the basis for the modelling, and it's interesting. Yeah. So, do we have some comments on the carbon trading, the India's plans around Article 6? Would anyone like to speak to that, or indeed Matt can comment maybe on what we're doing to support the better access to high integrity carbon finance.
If I may, just a few thoughts. I mean, the challenge I think many in India feel about India and clean cooking and the carbon markets is because your grid is not yet 100% renewables. Obviously, it's going to become increasingly clean, but electricity is not zero greenhouse gas emissions today. However, if you're going from biomass to current grid electricity, the very high efficiency of electric devices means that there is still a carbon benefit to be had. If you're going all the way to a solar solution, as we've heard mentioned, DRE and solar, again there are benefits to be had both from efficiency and from fuel switch. One thing I do notice is that just within the last couple of weeks, I think we've seen the first draft methodology come out from the Indian carbon market for clean cooking. I'm delighted to see that, and delighted to see that a very important route within that methodology is around sort of metered and measured cooking devices, which plays very strongly to the kind of modern cooking, including electric cooking and others. And our experience in Africa and other parts of South Asia is that there are very large amounts of money potentially available, both in the voluntary carbon market and in the Article 6 processes, to bring into this space. And if you're going for the very high integrity cooking projects, where you can use the digital meter data to demonstrate the real cooking activity and be very confident about the carbon benefits that you're claiming, then the prices you might achieve are really quite high. So I think it's a very exciting development to see this new methodology, and we'll certainly be contributing some comments to the consultation around it.
Great, thank you. And just to add that, as well as carbon benefits, we also actively working with partners to clarify and to give some numbers to the wider impacts, the health impacts and gender impacts that a shift towards electric cooking can achieve, which I think will also help to attract high levels of unit price, if you like, in this context. So it's all kind of going in a very positive direction, I think. Okay, thank you. Unless someone else wants to come in, I will go to our next question. So this is again about the modelling and the assumptions of the model. So given that biomass use was projected to decline from around 65% today to 20% by 2035, and we know that shifting people away from biomass is one of the most critical aspects of this sort of modernization and clean cooking agenda. What assumptions were made regarding behavioral change, affordability, and sustained adoption of electric cooking technologies, particularly in rural and low-income households? So again, that's a question, I think, for the NITI Aayog side.
Yeah, right. So like there are so this modeling itself is like we can't say it's any model data is going to be 100% perfect or what you predicted which is going to be on the ground. So we have also considers a lot of factor on that. So the behavior side and all that depends. Those are the inputs we receive from our different divisions and all, like how much shift or how much percentage is going changing, and these organizations, MECS, Finovista and all, they work on the ground. They give us some numbers, okay, this much percentage or change we are seeing. So, but those are not a very big numbers, although because we are trying to push from the government side or the policy side, what will be the having the impact on through the policy angle. So our major inputs on the model is through the policy side. And obviously the policy is vice versa of the inputs we receive from the industry side. So I can't, well, just right now, I can't say, oh, okay, it's going to be, but that is predictive model. And given this state of Hormuz crisis, now that maybe it may be reduced way below than the 20% I am seeing biomass. Maybe it can reduce way below that also. Because if you have seen the panic in the Indian market, once this cylinders stopped, well, they were not able to get the cylinder. There was panic buying of this electric induction. I am residing here in Delhi. There is a Blinkit and some different app. And this whole electric induction and this whole market, like it vanished. There were no electric cooker or electric any appliances were available on the market. So there is a panic buying for, like rightly said, Ms. Sheetal, ki it totally depends upon the situation and their affordability or the need. So this was indirectly created need of the electric cooking that impacted this whole market. Rather, it gave us a boost also that government was trying to do from so many years, but we couldn't do. That's my submission. Yeah.
Thank you. Sheetal, I don't know if you want to add anything to that from your grassroots experience.
No, I think most of the points are covered. So.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
No, I think it's definitely a challenging area from a number of points of view, partly because biomass is a very broad kind of range of different fuels. You know, you've got your gobar, your dung, as well as firewood and others, and in different contexts, and indeed coal, as colleagues have acknowledged. You know, the coal belt has a lot of access to this. So it's always going to be hard to shift people away from something which is essentially free at the point of use. But certainly in countries where people are paying for their charcoal or paying for their firewood, then the economics start to become more favourable, as well as obviously the focus on health and wider benefits. Okay, so next question. So there's a couple of questions which I'm going to kind of lump together and maybe Matt can respond to. One is about the MECS program, basically. So for manufacturers that have deployment-ready cooking appliances, is there a formal process for getting them listed as technology providers with MECS, or to connect to pilot or innovation grant programs? And related to that, is there a plan to extend MECS to any commercial cooking appliances other than induction, infrared, and EPC? Maybe Sheetal and Matt could comment on that in terms of our kind of remit and our kind of scope.
Maybe I'll start with just a couple of general comments. I'm sure Sheetal knows the detail much better than me. I mean, on the institutional side, I would echo actually comments from a number of people on this panel during the course of the webinar that the institutional side across all scales, from Anganwadis all the way up to large organisations, is absolutely vital. What we are seeing very excitingly, I think, is many new appliances emerging both in India and internationally, which can service those much larger loads. You know, large e-boilers, even large electric pressure cookers, large induction devices. So I think those devices are coming through, and we are super supportive of those. And there are many programs going on internationally now, whether targeting schools specifically or targeting institutional more generally. And I know that some of that work is going on in India too. The only other thing I would say is that we and others are very supportive of the idea of trying to aggregate the demand for different appliance types together. And so in terms of, you know, we don't have a formal way of registering appliances necessarily, but what we do have is we have a new scheme coming through called SAMPA, which will be looking at establishing a platform through which people who want appliances for a particular project or a particular sector or scheme can submit those requirements, and then the idea of the platform is it can potentially aggregate the demands for those together and get larger scale for the ask, which can help hopefully drive the prices down. Very much in tune with what EESL does already, and EESL are certainly one of the people we're talking to about this scheme. So I'm hoping that once SAMPA launches properly and it will become a commercial platform, is the intention, then there will be an opportunity for people with appliance types to effectively register and put their systems onto SAMPA system.
I think you've covered most of the things. I will just add 2 points to it, that under our works under MECS program, we've whenever these requirements of project-based deployments or anything comes up, we share this with the wider group in terms of mass mailers, sending it on social media, in terms of sending one-to-one mailers. So time and again, when such opportunities of project-based deployments come, we keep the industry informed of that. And this is both for commercial as well as household-based devices. And in terms of demonstration of these devices, there are multiple opportunities within India for commercial cooking devices to be demonstrated at the school and Anganwadi level. I think my team has, put in the details of the email ID. It'll be great if you can just share the product portfolio and details, and we will keep you posted as and when the opportunities come. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I think that's right. Getting on Finovista's radar is a key thing in India, because they have an amazing network now and can really connect you into opportunities. Okay, I'll move on. I'm conscious that we've gone over time, so I'm conscious that people will have to drop out, but I think this is proving really valuable. So I'm grateful if people are able to stay on. So an interesting twist now. So the discussion has highlighted that adoption depends not only appliance availability, but also cookware compatibility, kitchen infrastructure, user confidence, and cooking habits. Which of these factors do you believe presents the biggest barrier to scaling e-cooking in India over the next decade? So sort of which do you think is the biggest challenge? Cookware compatibility, kitchen infrastructure, user confidence, cooking habits? Anyone got a view on that? Sheetal?
I think maybe none of them. I think the most important barrier is awareness. I think at least I can say that for India, because until and unless the user is aware about electric cooking devices, what it can cook, the capability, the benefits of cost, thermal comfort, etc., there are multiple things that the user can sort out itself. And I think we've seen that in the studies that we've done on ground. And I think I'll come back to my, a parallel example that I had given, that when we were talking about the advent of smartphones 20 years ago in India, we saw a similar kind of an analogy where we saw just a handful of people who were using smartphones because it made financial and technical sense to only those people. But now that the use has been integrated very well, and there are multiple applications that a person can perform by using a smartphone, the economies of scale has kicks in, multiple things have solved. So I think we need to really start by educating and awareing the consumer, because that's the first point about addressing any challenge, to talk about it. So I think there is where we need to start from.
Okay, thank you, Sheetal. Nair, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, like if we have to scale up, like I feel one thing that I wouldn't say like is a biggest barrier or not, but something that needs to be taken into consideration is household, both electrical as well as kitchen readiness, especially in lower income households and in older housing stock. The challenge is not just about purchasing of appliances, but also ensuring that the electrical system can safely and reliably support it. So things like, adequate sanctioned load, because if you have your air conditioners and other appliances running at the same time when your induction cook stove is running, so your adequate sanction load, plays an important role. Your internal wiring quality, your sockets and circuit capacity. Those are some of the things, as Sheetal said, I mean, like awareness is a barrier, but I think once you cross that, then some of these things, both from users' point of view, as well as from building a new infrastructure point of view, should also and will also need to be taken into consideration as we kind of, expand our building base, and a lot of buildings are yet to be built in our country. So that's something that, will have to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
That's a very good point. And I don't think I'm going to be giving anything away, but we are in touch with a major development agency that is close to signing off on a big project where they're looking to expand the affordable housing program in India to include electric cooking. And I think that kind of getting it in at the start is critical. It's much easier. It's a bit like a mini grid. It's much easier to plan around electric cooking when you're starting than to try to add it in later. It's a more challenging infrastructure challenge, and the cost basis are different. Okay, so another shift then. Throughout the discussion, there's been a strong emphasis on actual usage rather than just appliance ownership. As India scales electric cooking, what indicators should policymakers track to measure genuine adoption and displacement of LPG or biomass, rather than simply counting the number of devices that have been distributed. So are there any plans in the policy space to start tracking and monitoring actual levels of usage? How many meals a week are cooked on different fuels or different ways of doing that? Would anyone like to comment? Is that or speculate?
Yeah, I mean, I
Complex
can
area.
comment. Yeah, it's a very good question, but I also feel like, I mean, there are ways, like surveys that are being done, to measure how much of an appliance is penetrated and how many hours are people using it. And those are some of the ways, the traditional ways through which it can be done. There are smart meters that people have. But I also feel like, just to keep our have a little bit of like realistic expectations in terms of residential cooking. Like we all know that the penetration is increasing, and that is great thing, and it is going to grow. It is becoming a lot more penetrated in the households. But for the foreseeable future, for the next few years, we will have diversified cooking energy mix. Our cooking transition cannot be viewed as a switch from one fuel to another overnight. There will be time, there will be a duration where both LPG and e-cooking will work together in parallel before we can anticipate or we can foresee this complete transition towards electric cooking. I mean, I'll stop there. So I don't have like a definitive modeling or measurement response to that question, but I also feel like those are some of the things for which we'll have to like watch out. And there are standard ways to kind of measure some of that. And, this is no different from that.
Thank you.
Can I add a couple of quick thoughts? I mean, I absolutely agree with both of those sort of main points that you've made. I think one of the challenges for some of the big kind of international survey methods that are used for progress on cooking is that the question tends to be, what is your primary fuel for cooking? And Sheetal commented on the importance of stacking, and I think Neha, you've just in a sense mentioned that as well. And absolutely, people stack different fuels together. They will continue to do that. That's not something that is a bad thing to do. It's just human nature and practice. And I think we have to get better in our data collection so that we ask more sophisticated questions to get better, more realistic data about the mix of fuels that people are using. Because otherwise, all we're doing is say, yes, you've transitioned, and we assume you are now using 100% electric cooking or 100% LPG, when that really is not the case. And we need better evidence to be able to bring into our analysis and models. So I would encourage the researchers and also actually policy and international institutions, and we are trying to do this, to get more sophisticated approaches to tracking energy use for cooking in particular.
Indeed, and just to build on that, and I don't know if colleagues at NITI Aayog or B have any influence over the ministry responsible for statistics and the census. I know there's a census that is due imminently, I think, in India, and it would be really helpful, as Matt says, to have a more sophisticated set of questions about fuel use that could really shed some valuable light on the current scenario, and as well as then enable us to track progress. And again, I think it's important, again, in this kind of context, that we don't create an illusion that somehow we expect everyone to cook 100% with electricity. That is not, however much that might be ideal, and it's what I do in my own home. I think if we can get 50% of the biomass cooking shifted away from biomass into electric cooking, that'd be an amazing progress. That would make huge difference to so many different measures. And that would be, a world first, I suspect. So let's not kind of set ourselves an impossible goal and then sort of beat ourselves up because we've not achieved it. I'm going to move us on because there's still some further interesting questions. Is the main barrier to e-cooking still the upfront cost of appliances, or are recurring electricity costs and perceptions about affordability becoming more significant for households? Reflecting from the Tanzania market, apart from other aspects, perceptions on electricity cost is the biggest challenge for adoption. So there are different mental expectations which people have, which can be as kind of influential as the actual costs of things. I think in India, the understanding of your bill, your electricity bill, and kind of what the different components are that led you to have a higher bill one month than the next is a challenge. Trying to persuade people that they'll save money if they shift to electric cooking is not always easy. People like to respond on that kind of perception point about affordability and the cost of things. Sheetal?
Yeah, so I think in practicality, people have this big apprehension because we need to understand that when a person is buying a cylinder, he or she is clear that they have to pay this much cost only.
Yeah.
With respect to electric cooking, they are always concerned that, what if they use and the bill comes to this much? So that, that aspect becomes a very big challenge for the consumers. Also, we need to see different scenarios in India. Like in India, even if the tariff is a certain amount for the consumers and there is a good amount of incentive being given to the users in terms of free units, etc. But there's a substantial amount of people who are using rented premises. In certain rented premises, we've seen in Delhi, NCR, etc., that the landlords are actually charging a fixed rate, and now that rate is much higher. So again, the apprehension of the user becomes too much because they are going to be, if the electricity department is charging 7 rupees per unit, these landlords are charging 10 rupees. So therefore, for them, it becomes all the more, they become anxious in terms that when we will start using a switch to electric cooking, we might exceed a certain amount. And once that bill will come, then how will we pay? So that becomes a difference between the LPG and in case of electricity, that one place the cost that you will be paying upfront, and in the other place you just can't anticipate. However, our work shows that, as you keep working with them 1 month, 2 months, they keep understanding the savings, and only then they become comfortable in terms of switching into more amount of recipes or cuisines to be shifted to electric cooking. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's right, and I think, and I would just love us to be able to offer people an electric cooking appliance on a trial basis, because there's no substitute for actual experience. I also think that there's a great deal of power in community influencers, as it were, that people in a rural community or indeed in an urban society hearing about each other's experience and saying, yeah, someone who was an early adopter, who was keen to try this new technology that maybe had a bit more of a disposable income, tried it and found that actually it saved them money. And that then is someone that you can trust, whereas you may or may not trust an electricity provider or another intermediary. So there's different ways in which people get their information and get their opinions formed. Okay, unless someone else wants to come in. So the next question is, if we stress on distributed solar to strengthen the uptake of electric cooking, batteries become a very important component as grid fluctuations can substantially increase, even with renewable energy feeding to the grid. What is the panel thoughts on the role of batteries and the challenges around that? Storage more broadly.
I mean, I would jump in briefly. I think generally, not specifically for India, I think that is absolutely right. I think it can be batteries both at the network, at the grid level. And India, like many countries, is pursuing the role of storage to support distributed renewables, as well as other forms of demand management to support flexibility of electricity networks generally. But if you go down to individual households, we've done plenty of work looking at effectively large solar home systems where you would integrate a battery and solar and be able to provide enough electricity stored to be able to cook every day. And as the cost of electricity from DRE and from batteries, the cost of batteries continues to fall, It is already effectively cost effective where households are currently paying for traditional fuels. If they're not paying for traditional fuels, if they're gathering them in some way, then it's a much bigger challenge, and then one needs to look at development finance, I think, to help overcome those cost barriers. But no, I absolutely agree. I think batteries are crucial. Battery technologies are increasingly improving, and I think this is an important space.
Okay, thank you. We're getting more questions, but I'm really conscious that we've run out of time, and I think we need to stop it there because our very distinguished speakers all have extremely busy lives and need to be able to leave us. So thanks everyone once again for a really stimulating discussion. As I said, this is not going to be the end of it, and we're very glad to have this community growing to help to drive forward good solutions that work for everyone. So I will leave it there. Thank you all very much for your time and your contributions, and I hope that you have a good evening or a good rest of the day.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.